In a quiet town surrounded by hills and farms lived a young man named Michael. Michael was known by everyone in the village as a dreamer. He often talked about the life he wanted to live, a successful life filled with respect, wealth, and happiness. Whenever he saw successful people in town, he admired them. He loved the beautiful houses they built, the comfortable lives they lived, and the respect people gave them. But Michael had a problem. He wanted the rewards of success, but he did not want to go through the struggle required to achieve it. Whenever work became difficult, Michael quickly lost interest. When others stayed up late to improve their skills, Michael preferred to rest. When friends practiced their crafts or studied their trades, Michael often searched for easier ways. Deep inside, he believed that somehow success would eventually come to him without much effort. One afternoon, while walking through the market street, Michael heard a rhythmic tapping sound coming from a small wooden workshop. Curious, he walked closer and looked inside. There, sitting quietly near a wooden table, was an old craftsman carefully carving a piece of wood. The man's hands moved slowly and precisely as he shaped the wood into a beautiful sculpture. Wood shavings covered the floor, and several finished sculptures stood on shelves around the workshop. Each one looked elegant and detailed. Michael watched for a moment and then asked, "Why are you taking so much time to carve that piece of wood? Wouldn't it be easier to finish it quickly?" The old craftsman paused, looked up at Michael, and smiled gently. Then he said something simple but powerful. "Anything in life worth having is worth working for." Michael laughed slightly. "To me, it's just a piece of wood," he replied. The old craftsman said nothing more, simply returned to his work. A few days later, Michael passed by the workshop again. This time, the sculpture was finished. It was breathtaking. The wooden figure looked almost alive. Every detail, the curves, the smooth surface, the delicate patterns, showed incredible skill. Soon, a wealthy traveler came into the shop and offered a large sum of money to buy the sculpture. Michael was shocked. "How can someone pay so much money for something made from wood?" he asked. The old craftsman looked at him calmly and replied, "They are not paying for the wood. They are paying for the years of patience, practice, discipline, and hard work that made this possible." Those words struck Michael deeply. For the first time, he began to realize something important. Success was not about luck or shortcuts. Success was about effort and dedication. The next morning, Michael returned to the workshop and asked the craftsman if he could become his apprentice. The old man studied him for a moment and then said, "This work is not easy. Your hands will ache. Your patience will be tested. But if you stay committed, you will become great." Michael accepted. However, his training did not begin with carving beautiful sculptures. Instead, his first tasks were simple and humble: sweeping the workshop floor every morning, organizing the carving tools, carrying heavy blocks of wood, cleaning the dust and wood shavings, observing the master craftsman carefully for weeks. Michael did nothing but watch and learn. At times he felt impatient. He wanted to start carving immediately. But the old craftsman always reminded him, "Strong foundations create great results." Eventually, the craftsman handed Michael his first carving tool and gave him small pieces of wood to practice on. Michael began by carving basic shapes, straight lines, circles, and simple patterns. At first, his work was terrible. His hands shook. His lines were uneven. Many pieces of wood cracked or broke. Sometimes he felt embarrassed by how poor his work looked. But every time he made a mistake, the old craftsman calmly said, "Skill is built through repetition." So Michael kept practicing. Michael's routine became demanding. Every day he woke up before sunrise, opened the workshop, prepared the tools, practiced carving for hours, studied the techniques of the master craftsman. His hands soon developed blisters and calluses. Some days his arms were so tired he could barely lift them, but he refused to stop. Slowly his hands became steadier. His carvings became smoother. His confidence grew. As time passed, the craftsman began teaching Michael advanced skills. Michael learned how to choose the best type of wood, understand the natural grain patterns, use different carving tools for fine details, smooth surfaces carefully with sandpaper, apply oils and finishes to protect and beautify the wood. He also learned something even more important: patience. Some sculptures required days or even weeks of careful work. One mistake could ruin the entire piece. But Michael no longer searched for shortcuts. He had learned that true mastery takes time. Even with all his effort, Michael still faced many failures. Sometimes a sculpture cracked near completion. Sometimes customers rejected his designs. Sometimes he worked for weeks and earned very little. But Michael had changed. Instead of quitting, he asked himself, "What can I learn from this mistake?" Failure became his teacher. Years passed. The young man who once avoided effort had become one of the most skilled craftsmen in the region. His sculptures were admired for their beauty and detail. People traveled from nearby towns to purchase his work. His reputation grew, and his life slowly transformed. The success he once dreamed about had finally become reality. One day, a young boy visited Michael's workshop and asked him the same question Michael had once asked the old craftsman. "How did you become so successful?" Michael smiled, remembering the lesson that changed his life. Then he answered with the same words he had heard years before. "Anything in life worth having is worth working for." Success is not created overnight. It is built through discipline, patience, learning from failure, and consistent effort. The greatest achievements in life always require hard work, because the things that come easily rarely last. But the things you work hard for become the things that truly change your life.